everyone, and welcome to the Dev Morning Show at Night. My name is Cassidy Williams, and I am accompanied by my wonderful co-host, Zach Plata. Hey, Zach.
Hey, Cass. Are you watching anything on Netflix or Hulu or whatever these days?
Once again, I am watching Alone, where I am learning about wildlife every single day. And I am shocked that people choose to put themselves in that position, because I love being indoors.
I agree wholeheartedly.
That being said, speaking of awesome people who are indoors and outdoors, Salma, welcome to the show. Salma is a staff developer experience engineer at Netlify. Hello.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. I am mainly inside, full disclaimer. Don't like
I was going
outside.
to ask, are you like a camping person?
No. No, thank you. I mean, I love the idea of it.
Right.
But the effort of taking things, I need comforts. I can't just sleep in a field.
Agree. I like the idea of glamping. Glamping is great, where if you have plumbing and you don't have to like strive for food, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have learned that as I've gotten older, I'm an indoor cat.
It's just a lot easier.
It might be safer to camp in the United Kingdom where I live compared to the United States of America, given the wildlife situation. So maybe that's a thing to consider, and maybe I should count myself lucky and go camping right after this.
That's true. I think as long as none of us camp in Australia, we're like a spider could eat us alive. I think we're good.
Good point.
Anyway, Salma, what are you working on right now? In work, outside of work?
So the main project I'm working on right now is a fun little thing called WTF, What the Framework. And I'm building it live on stream on Twitch. And it is a tool to help you choose your next JavaScript framework based on the product features that you need for your new project, of your new app. I don't want to get into any of the hype. I don't want to be biased about anything, who's doing the new coolest thing. I just want to allow people to choose something based on what they need, and then maybe they'll discover some new frameworks in the process.
I think that's very necessary because the hype cycles are real for all of these different frameworks.
Is this kind of like a choose your adventure kind of thing with a bunch of questions that spawn into...
Yes.
Fun.
It's very prototypey at the moment, but it mainly consists of 3 questions or 2 questions at the moment. It's just like, do you need your website project to be static, dynamic, or a combination of the two? And then I haven't figured out the best way to ask this yet, but basically, do you need an SPA or an MPA? And then here's some to choose from. And then we could get deeper into the details, such as, do you want a CLI for that framework? Do you want it to support TypeScript? And all these different little technological things, but I kind of don't even want to get bogged down with the tech. It doesn't need to be that complex. Basically, what type of product are you building? Here's some of the things that you can use to build it and have fun.
So how are you building it?
I'm building it with Astro. I'm building it with Astro. Because I've tried to use Astro a few times since it came out at like version 0, and I haven't got very far because it was still quite early on. But now they're like officially version 1, and they've got more features. And I think right now I've come up against no issues with and I'm even doing some really complicated routing. So I'm really enjoying it. Don't want to jump on the hype and influence anybody's choice by saying I'm using Astro, but that's just what I'm using, because also the community is absolutely beautiful as well.
Yeah. Well, I also think there's so much opportunity, first of all, with this project in general, like the fact that you said all of these acronyms like SPA, MPA, CLI, we probably know those. Not everybody does. And so like an opportunity for defining what those terms mean and explaining like you probably don't need this or something.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. Because a lot of people, so I'm in the Jamstack Discord, it's kind of part of my job, but also I'm there for the community. And the biggest question, the most asked question we get in the Discord is, hey, what framework should I use to build this? And you can't advise people like that. It's always, it depends. It's always, so what are you building? What features do you need? Do you need a CMS? Are non-developers working on your product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And so you need to be informed when you're choosing your tech stack. And I think I've seen too many people just jump in with the stuff they know and love. Hey, just use Next.js. Hey, just use this. Hey, just use that. And it's not always the right choice. And someone who is asking that type of question might not actually be equipped with the type of information that they need to gather down the line anyway, because they might just be starting out. They might never have done it before. And so my new project is to hopefully equip people with the knowledge about the questions to ask as well, about when you're choosing your tech. And it could blow wide open. It could even be like, okay, so now you've chosen a framework. What CMS do you want to choose? Do you even need a CMS? And now what other thing do you want to choose? So it could get a bit much, but opportunity.
Yeah, it could get hairy, or it could end up being even bigger, and you could make it so it scaffolds out a project. Oh no! But that's
stop! You'll make me add it to my Trello board.
I know. I'm so sorry. As I was saying it, I was like, "Oh no! I'm creating work for you."
But I like it. I like it. See, there's a lot of possibilities, and right now for the prototype, I thought I'd have to ask about 20 questions, but actually it works just asking 3, and
right.
or maybe even 2. So I think it gives value in the most basic way and presents you with some frameworks. So we could iterate on it, or we could not. And I think in the state it's in, even though it's got no design yet, I think it's still pretty valuable. So let's see what happens.
Well, speaking of awesome tools, it is time for our ad read. The Dev Morning Show at Night is a sponsored podcast. It means someone has to pay the bills around here. We're sponsored by LaunchDarkly, and LaunchDarkly is the first scalable feature management platform. That means dev teams can innovate and get better software to customers faster. How? By gradually releasing new software features and shipping code whenever they want, fast-tracking their journeys to the cloud, and building stronger relationships with business teams. Thanks for the money, LaunchDarkly.
So Salma, besides this one project that has got my mind spinning, what does your day-to-day look like?
So I work in the DevRel industry, if you want to call it that, developer relations. Some people think it's marketing, some people think it's not. I'm definitely more on the developer experience side, which is actually helping improve the experience of the Netlify product, right? So one of the things that I think is a little bit of a misconception is obviously I create a lot of content, but my content is actually the result of all the other things that I'm doing as part of my job. So I am learning about frameworks in order to help people build with frameworks. And I am educating people about new features of Netlify by learning how to use them myself and helping improve them during the process. One of the biggest examples of this is actually with the most recent release of the Next.js runtime by Netlify. And I had a lot of fun working like this with the engineers for a week and a half. I was producing my tutorial content in parallel to the product development. And basically I said, engineers, this is what the developer experience needs to look like. Please make it so. And they did. And that was, that's the main part of the job. It's like, I'm a developer. I was a developer for 8 years before I got into this industry. And I've done all sorts of development, front end, tech lead, back end, project architecture. And I use that experience and real world experience to inform how I know developers want to work and want to use a product. And that's like the bottom line. It's like my vested interest is in making the product easier and more joyful to use for developers. And I get to do some fun stuff on the side, like this. Because a big part of the job is remaining authentic as a developer. I'm not here to shill a product to you. I'm not here to market or sell anything to you. I'm here to advocate for developers. And I do that through a variety of different mediums. And content is how you gain, I don't want to say like views and stuff, but it's how you gain reputation as a professional in the field. And without that credibility, I don't really have a leg to stand on, so to speak. So it's about building relationships with the community through getting to know what they want, informing the product development of Netlify through doing that, and then writing about it, streaming about it, building weird projects about it, and YOLO deploying unfinished websites over and over again.
Of course. I think the developer relations industry, quote unquote, it's interesting how it's changed over time, because I think initially it really was like a combination of engineering and marketing. But now I think it has definitely transformed into a combination of like engineering and user experience with like drops of marketing, because you're producing content as a result.
Yes. The UX part, the user experience part, I think is critical, because developers are the users of the product that I work for. And so I am advocating for their use and to make it good. It's a very nice way of putting it, actually. I never put the UX with it. It's because they call it DX, don't they? They call it developer experience, but it is UX because developers are users. So I'm going to take that with me.
Ooh, take it in your pocket.
Well, on your day-to-day, what kind of tools are you using, like editor and terminal and all that good stuff?
So I try to keep my tool set as streamlined and simple as possible, because I've tried all the fancy schmancy hyped ones and they're just too much. I use iTerm2, right, with a little customized shell. It just puts a little fire emoji and colors it up a bit and gives my Git branches some style. And I use VS Code, and with some very minimal plugins, most notably Power Mode that people will see when I live stream, which gives you sparkles and fireworks every time you type, which now I don't see anymore because it's just there and I'm used to it. But I think I'd probably notice if it went just a few little things. And then Trello is a big one that I use to organize a blurry lined mix of my individual projects compared to my work projects, which we use Notion at work. But it's mainly like Trello, VS Code, and iTerm2. And I've got a lot of like other gadgets on my desk, like some Stream Decks and my split keyboard and blah, blah, blah. So I always like to think of tools as both software and hardware, but it's about just keeping a streamlined affair of tools, because I've tried the latest and greatest and they're not the greatest really for getting on with your life. They need to be out of the way and just allow yourself to work.
Yeah, I think there is such a thing as over-engineering your own setup that like it plateaus in effectiveness over time.
Absolutely.
I also think it's like a learning curve with a lot of new tools too, where it's like they preach like simpleness and like flexibility and stuff, and it's like I don't have the time to like try and learn these things.
I know Cassidy like loves Obsidian, and I've downloaded Obsidian before, I think twice, and removed it twice. I'm like, I need to get onto this new like hype train of note taking, and I just look at it and I'm like, I don't really have a use for this. I'll just put a note on my Trello board, or I use the Reminders app, the Apple Reminders app and the Apple Notes app all the time because it's synced to all my devices. So again, I still, it looks pretty, it looks beautiful, but I just don't have a personal use for it. I don't think,
Yeah, I think for tools like that, you just have to use what works for you. With Obsidian, it didn't work for me at first. And then I saw how Ben Hong, who is also on the Netlify team and is just an Obsidian power user, uses it. And I was like, I cannot replicate his work. It's glorious, but it's to an extreme that I can't do. And so finding like your own path to using a tool effectively, I think is important.
I think there's also this misconception that if you use the latest and greatest tools, you will be more productive and work better, but that's not always the case. It's always a personal kind of recipe that you need to develop over time. And just because you're using the next best terminal doesn't mean you're going to be a 10x developer.
Anyway, so besides all of this amazing DevRel stuff, you said that you were in the industry developing for 8 years. And in general, what got you in tech in the first place?
It's a very long, weird story. And I always try to make it shorter every time I tell it. And I'm not sure that I can. Basically, I always wanted to be in tech from the age of 6 when I wrote my first lines of BASIC on a Commodore 64. But where I grew up, it wasn't possible. It was in the 90s. There was no internet in households. There were no online tutorials. There were no hashtag 100 devs. Nothing. I didn't even know anyone who did tech. So I became a musician and I did a music degree. I majored in composition and wanted to be a film composer. That didn't work out. And so I started teaching, initially teaching kids in rock bands. And then I decided to become a qualified teacher in the UK where I taught 11 to 18-year-olds in schools.
That's
Fast
so
forward
cool.
Fast forward a few years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a different life, isn't it? Fast
really
forward a
is.
few years, and I decided that it wasn't for me. Teaching is difficult. It's emotionally draining, and I did not have the emotional maturity in my mid-20s to carry on teaching. Full disclaimer. So I just quit, and I ended up working in a call center, and that was the beginning of my tech career. I was working for minimum wage. And my manager, his girlfriend, had recently left a small little magazine startup at the top of a furniture shop, and they needed a graphic designer. And I had graphic design on my CV because I was doing web dev in my spare time. I was doing album art for my musician friends. I was using some old tech to make websites. And anyway, I went for an interview at this place and I got the job as a graphic designer and salesperson. And there was one IT guy who worked there who did everything, back end, front end. He wrote his own CMS, infrastructure, DevOps, everything. And I sat on the same desk bank as him and I got to know him and I was like, hey, I want to do tech. And so I moved my desk next to him and he showed me the ropes. As a teacher, I was teaching him how to teach. And as someone who was very technically experienced, he was teaching me tech. I learned PHP. It was this really obscure PHP full stack framework. And I learned CoffeeScript before JavaScript and SAS before CSS. Anyway, I successfully, during my 6 months there, so there used to be 2 separate websites, one for desktop, one for mobile. I successfully, pretty much on my own, amalgamated the 2 into one responsive website for all devices.
Nice.
And that was my initiation into the industry. And after that, I got a series of front-end jobs and moved quite quickly to being a tech lead, I think because of my teaching leadership experience. And at the beginning of the pandemic, is when I started streaming, when I started meeting people online in the tech industry. And that's how I got into developer relations through Twitch.
Wow. I'm also surprised that you only started streaming at the beginning of the pandemic because your stream is so fancy. Like it's one of the most polished streams I've seen in the tech world.
I mean, I'm a front-end developer, aren't I? And every part of my stream, is a browser page. So, and it's great stream content, right? To create stream overlays while you're streaming. So I've been streaming for just over 2 years.
Oh, amazing.
Wow. And the music angle is always so fun because I feel like there's an absurd number of dev people who are musicians or have been musicians. Everyone on this call plays some instruments and it's cool to see. And I wonder why it works that way, why that overlap exists.
So I remember so music does something to one side of my brain and coding does something to the other side of my brain. And when I'm doing both together, that's when my brain is on fire. But I think, so I was going to give a talk that was postponed a few weeks ago as part of the developer downloads in the Jamstack Discord. And the title of this little chat was How Writing Code is Exactly Like Writing Music. And I think they are both exactly the same, in my brain at least. And I approach writing code like I approached my composition. It's about, especially with functional programming, it's about motifs and repeatable things. And you have an overarching journey that you want to take, and a beginning, a middle, and an end, basically, even on a function level or an architecture level. It's exactly the same. It's not even about maths. I think it's just about logic and problem solving and creativity. So I think they're the same. And I can't wait to talk more about it when I actually finally do that chat thing.
That's awesome.
Have you seen that one functional language that lets you generate music? Where it looks like Elixir, but or like Lisp or something, but it generates actual musical tones.
No, but I need to look into this now. You're giving me more tasks to do. Thank you very
I'm
much.
so sorry. I will send it to you though, because it's really cool, and we can
you.
drop it in the show notes after as well.
I wonder, is that Sonic Pi?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, I've used
that's one of
Sonic
them.
Pi. Oh,
Yeah.
So yeah, I did a couple of streams on Sonic Pi. I loved it. The only problem with me is, so I do a lot of like well, not a lot anymore, but I used to. The most recent bit of music I recorded was for the FYI Fridays Netlify series as I've been releasing. But when I write music, I like to perform it and not just click buttons and stuff. And so I tried to hook up like the MIDI with Sonic Pi and the like pitch bend and the modulation, but there was too much latency, which made me very upset and frustrated. I wanted to be able to play into Sonic Pi to perform like that rather than just writing code. So my musician in me was taking over more than the coder in me. And I was getting very, very frustrated. So I abandoned that for a while. But I do love Sonic Pi. And just the whole concept of merging the two is very interesting to me.
It's so neat. We could talk about this forever, but it is time for rapid fire questions. We're going to ask you questions rapidly. So first, we all have a domain name or 10 that we're squatting on. What are some of yours?
2 that come to mind. Number 1, when does a biscuit become a cookie.info? Because in the UK, right, we have biscuits, but we also have cookies. But cookies are like big, soft things, and biscuits are small, hard things. And there must be a point at where the threshold where a biscuit becomes a cookie. And I just wanted to build a website that delved into that. Haven't yet.
I also just want to know.
Me too. Me too.
I always thought it was just biscuits.
Yeah, well, we have cookie. We get mainly bags of 5 cookies from the local supermarket. Is a big thing. Anyway, the second one, shouting.dev. So I wanted to build a web page that that you leave on in the background when you're coding, and at random intervals, a video would pop up and shout encouraging words to you. I guess a bit like Centered app, but on a web page randomly, and not at sensible intervals. So it would probably scare you out of your skin. Haven't done that one yet either.
I admit, when you first started describing this, I thought it would just go like, ah!
No, it's like, that's great. That's a great console log. Well done.
Just like, don't forget to commit early and often.
Yeah, exactly. And if I was clever enough, I might be able to actually hook it up to VS Code, where if I'm seeing someone typing console log, that's when the console log video would play. If I'm seeing someone doing a class or a function, I could shout, it doesn't matter what you choose as long as it gets the job done. Things like that.
I love it.
What is the most recent thing you over-optimized?
The Internet of Things is rife in this world, and there are far too many Internet of things in my house, so that even if like the internet like disconnects momentarily, I have to reset like all the lights in my house, and it's painful. I have like an Apple HomePod in every room. It's stupid. But I'm in too deep now, and so I need to stay there because I'm so used to not touching light switches. Fun fact, actually, this room is my office in the garden, and not enough is optimized in this room actually, because all these lights behind me, they need to be turned on by switches, and I feel like I'm in the dark ages compared to the rest of my house. But so I mean, less is more, I think. But now I'm too far in, so that's my life now.
I definitely, a large percentage of my house is the exact same way. Like every light in my office I can control with my voice, and it is very, very fun. Except for, like you said, when the internet goes out, or if one might get a condition such as COVID where you can't use your voice.
Yes.
Oh.
What is your golden rule for coding?
Build first. engineer later.
Ooh.
So,
Expand.
so this works on a personal level, at a team level, at a product level, at a startup level, at any feature iteration level. Just build something and get it out there. Don't over analyze the types of code you're writing. Just don't add too many tests straight away. Just like get something out there and deploy it. So if you've seen me stream, you'll notice I release a lot of websites after I've spent 2 hours on building some kind of prototype. I'd have got no CSS. I've got no anything. Let's put it online because I can, right? And once it's out there, it's kind of like, it's a thing. It's like you've achieved something rather than sitting on it for months and months and months and months and months and obsessing over the quality of it and being a perfectionist. I'm like, oh, maybe that should go there. Maybe just build it, get it out, go deploy it. And then if it works, if it's something that you want to carry on doing, if you've got the data that says that maybe this is something that the world needs, then go and engineer it and, separate your concerns and have one source of truth and make it dry. But when you're just prototyping, just build it. And don't stress and see what happens.
I agree with that so deeply because I fall victim to it so often. Where you over optimize so much at the beginning, and then you end up just not finishing so many projects. And there's
And
like
then you get bored of it, and then you get weary of it, and then it's such a wasted opportunity to see if something could be useful to someone. And, but I do get a lot of like confused people. Why are you releasing that website when there's no CSS on it? How could you? It's like you're walking out of the house with your underwear on, but that's still a valid outfit, really, as long as your private parts are covered. Go for it and be seen. Just YOLO.
I would like to take a clip of just that.
I was just thinking that too.
No.
All right. What is your favorite "it depends" question?
How do I get started in web development? Such a big question. I was quite proud of an analogy I put out on Twitter a little while ago. Asking that question, how do I get started in web development, is like saying, how do I get started with cooking? It's like, what do you want to make? What are you hungry for? Do you want to do pastry? Do you want to do sauces? Do you want to do salads? Do you want to specialize in meat? And you need to, again, it's like with the What the Framework project, you have to ask a lot of questions to give the right answer. And I always find like it's a very hard question to answer because you have to ask so many more questions to help people correctly and in a more sensible way. And, how do I get started with exercise? I mean, yes, just do it. But actually, can you walk? Can you run? Do you need special help with specific movements? Do you suffer really badly from acid reflux? That kind of thing. So how do I get started with general term here? It is very difficult. And so if you're thinking about asking that question, I want to encourage you to think about, what do you want to make? How do I make a blog site? How do I make a lasagna? How do I make bread? It's far more useful, and you'll get more useful answers after it.
Great point.
That's a great one. What's the oldest piece of tech that you still own?
This.
What is that?
A manual thermometer that you put on your head to take your temperature. And this was given to me by my mother-in-law, who used it on her children in the 80s. And it's quite fascinating how it works. And this is literally the oldest. It was working. It was getting coloured. There you go. Look, I didn't leave it on for long enough.
Wow, I didn't know those existed.
I know,
Yeah.
and it's in this little case. And I tried to actually discern what year this was from, but it doesn't say on the instructions. But here it is, and I still use it on my child now. It's like a family heirloom.
Wow. Well, and if it works, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It works. There you go. It's fascinating that
There's like
more
that
widespread.
Buy It for Life subreddit, and I
Yeah.
feel like that would be the perfect entry for it.
I'm going to give it to my child if he has children.
Or just for himself to walk around.
Yeah, just relive your childhood when mummy put the thing on your head.
All right. Have you written a piece of cringy code? And if so, what was it?
I'm really ashamed. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed of this, but right.
That's the best kind.
Yeah.
So I was building live on stream when I was building What the Framework just like 2 weeks ago, 1.5 weeks ago. And the first prototype of this first page was a form. It was an HTML form. And I wasn't using JavaScript with the form. I was just like using HTML native form stuff with query parameters that would be put in the URL when you press submit. And I thought, oh, I need a way, if someone has bookmarked the page with the query parameter in, I need to allow them to clear the query parameter, right? Just in case they want to start over again. And so what I did was I built another form that had a hidden input with an empty value in and had a submit button, so that when you press the submit button, the query parameter would be cleared to blank, when I could have just used a link that redirected you to the homepage.
That's what I was going to say. So a homepage link, but a form.
Yes, I was too deep in the whole form HTML thing, and somebody kindly pointed it out to me before I committed it, and I was like, what on earth has gotten into me? Funny story, right? But it's like, but this is the thing about the web. You can do so many things in so many different ways. It worked, but it was silly, but it worked.
You're allowed to do unholy things in a code base.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm very
Build it
ashamed.
first.
But luckily it didn't get committed into version history, so actually it didn't happen.
Exactly.
No one's going to know.
This is the only record of it. What is your favorite programming pun?
It's not a pun per se, but every time I say the word Jason, like Jason Lengstorff, I say JSON, as in like the JSON, JavaScript object notation, but also the way I say JSON, I'm doing it now. Like I can't say it without saying JSON, like package of JSON. And I don't know what it is with me, but that's my favorite thing. The word JSON, I have to say it French. And I don't know why, but it's not a pun. And I'm sorry, this is a terrible answer, but I hope that you go forth with this knowledge. And every time you are looking at a package.json, you think of me.
I'm now going to pronounce it like that in my head constantly.
I don't know what it is. But the package lock is just a package lock. It's not a package.look. It's a package lock. But package.json. Take it or leave it.
It reminds me one time someone said, oh, you should check out this rapper. And the rapper was JSON. Like it was like J''SON. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to Google this, but my search results are going to be very skewed towards coding things. And so I wrote JSON rapper, but then it just thought that I made a typo. and then it just, I never found out who that rapper was.
Oh no.
All right. And then to round things out, what is your most used emoji?
It's the :joy : in Slack. It's the crying, laughing. That used to be sweating, and the meaning changed over time, and now it's just everywhere. And so this is my most used one, but I'm slowly moving to the sideways ruffle.
Oh yeah, like the
quirky ruffle. I never use ruffle, rolling on the floor laughing. I never use ruffle in text. I use lol. But I also like the fact that because so many people I know, even if I don't work with them, use Slack. If anywhere doesn't support emojis like that, I can write :joy : and everyone knows what I mean. So it's kind of synonymous with the, but a lot of people say that this is a boomer emoji. It's not what the cool kids use. Like also like thumbs up is not cool anymore.
Yeah.
But I'm going to roll with it. I'm going to keep using joy, and I hope to spread joy across the land at the same time.
I've learned from the youths that if the emoji is showing teeth, then it's cringe.
What?
I know.
Oh god.
That's a lot of emojis, and I disagree.
Now I
It's
don't
the
want to
kids
show
who
my
are wrong.
teeth.
I know. Anyway, it is time for the random segment generator. we are going to randomly pick segments and ask you questions. And the first one is Dev Oops. What's something that you broke once?
I think this is a rite of passage for every new developer. I was working at a startup. I don't know why I have to say this quietly. It's I'm very ashamed of this. I'm not, because anyway, but let's carry on. I was working at a e-commerce startup, right? And as part of the e-commerce startup build process, we had a number of like alpha customers. And as a very small developer team, there were like 3 of us, 3 developers. We all had root access to all the live production servers via a terminal. What I needed to do at this point, because we didn't have any like concept of development environment versus production environment kind of CI/CD thing. It was all very, very lo-fi. I needed to go into the server, SSH in, zip up a file of images, download the tar of the images, and use that in development so I could build a product image carousel or something. Anyway, I thought, so I zipped it up, downloaded it, and I thought, I need to clean up the server. I need to leave it nice and clean and tidy. So I typed rm-rf images, tab autocomplete, enter.
No.
Didn't need to do RF for a zip file. So I deleted all the images on the server on the live site and spent the next 24 hours restoring most of them from a cached backup or something. Never have I ever been more mortified in my life. But, things happen. I use that story to hopefully make other devs who've made mistakes feel a bit better about their lives. So I'm very careful when I use RF these days, even now.
It really is a rite of passage. I feel like we all have one of those stories where like we messed up really bad and we got to deal with it now.
That sounds like a great website idea, like RF stories.
Oh, stop
Zach.
giving me more ideas, because I could make
it to
that
the
in
Trello
like one
board.
stream and YOLO deploy it, and there you go, there's my first one. Let's submit them. Because I can do HTML forms, can't I? Because I write forms all the time, even when I don't need them.
Moving on to the next segment, it's 404s and heartbreak. So what is something that was taken off the internet, or it's like a page not found, that you miss dearly?
In the late 90s, early 2000s, one of the most fascinating corners of the very young internet was a site called hell.com. And it was like nothing I've ever seen, okay? It would change really often. Like you'd go onto hell.com one day and it'd be completely different the next day. And it would be like a series of random rabbit holes and links and existential questions and art and sometimes a Google search embed. Like it was weird. Now I looked this up on Wikipedia a few months ago because I was talking about it on stream, and there is a big write-up about the evolution of hell.com and who was behind it and what it was for. But I think I quite liked not knowing that. I quite liked not knowing that, but I know about it now. And when you look on the Wayback Machine, it doesn't work because it used Flash. And so I can't. Like the experience of it, I can't share it with anyone. It's in my head, but it will never leave me. The feeling of that intrigue and wonder and fear, because the internet was new. I felt like I was in a different place. And I think we've lost a bit of that about the internet, about like the intrigue of the unknown and actually how does this work and where am I and what am I doing? And I want to bring that back. I actually wanted to recreate hell.com and I added it to my Trello board, but actually I couldn't do it justice. I couldn't really do it, and I didn't want to ruin my feeling inside of this website. But anyway, if you want to go, you can see some iterations of it on on the Wayback Machine. But it's because it uses Flash, you can't really get the full picture, but it was fascinating. So I'd love to know if anybody out there knew of hell.com at the same time as well, so I can share my fandom with you.
There was so much cool, weird things. There's so many things that the internet just there's so much order to the internet now. It's not the barren wasteland where people just throw things up as much as they did before. And I feel like we do need to bring some of that back, because it was fun and chaotic and, for better or for worse, just really weird.
Yeah, bring it back.
And our last segment is the Mild Panic Trivia Fun Game. Okay, we have 10 seconds to ask anyone a question or compliment them fast. Zach, you go first.
Okay, Salma. What is your favorite instrument or instruments to play?
Piano. Do I explain it, or do we just keep mild panicking on to the next bit?
I actually would love to learn.
Yeah.
Do you do like the electric keyboard type piano, or like a piano?
Any piano, as long as it has the full size, because the timbre difference between the low note and the high note, you can just create some lovely things, and you can playing the piano is accessible to so many more people than just playing a single instrument, because it's a full experience for them and what they're used to listening to on the radio kind of thing. So I think playing the piano is great for the player to be able to experience creating a full sounding thing, but also great for the listener and great for accessibility to music, because you can do everything with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, you're next.
Cassidy, if you could
Hello.
eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh no, just one?
Just one.
It would probably be bread and olive oil with like tomato and basil. I could eat that every day, all day, constantly. I love that combination so much.
It's like a pizza.
It is.
Yeah.
I love basically things that are a vessel for olive oil in general. Like I just put it in my veins. I love good olive oil. And so especially with bread and tomatoes and basil, like that just combination. And of course some cheese, like some manchego or mozzarella. So good. But yes, it is very much like a pizza.
Even more so with the cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Zach, if you could pick up a new hobby right now, what would it be?
Pogo sticking.
Oh,
I
cool.
don't know why, but I thought about that recently, and I just think back to like when that was a huge fad in my childhood, and people would just like be hopping up and down the street pogo sticking, and now I really want one,
Just
and I want to learn how
hopping
to do it. I know.
Good, clean fun. Good, healthy, clean fun. Now I want to get on a pogo stick.
Yeah, I kind of want to try.
Right.
Because I know I did it like as a child. I don't know if I have that balance now.
Maybe
It's
a
a
little.
good one.
I feel like in the pandemic, like roller skating or rollerblading, like just blew up as like a hobby of things to do outside. And I wonder if pogo stick ever had that like little niche community.
Well, it would be all over the internet now. There'd be Twitter communities. There'd be people live streaming it. There'd be people blogging about it. I mean, I reckon there is a big pogo stick community that I think we should now just try and find. Does that
Find it, Zach. Go.
Let's do it.
and report back?
Perfect. Will do.
It is time for Cassidy's sage advice. It's time for advice that I give sagely. My advice to you is to make a Trello board or any type of tool for tracking your projects, because like Salma said multiple times in this episode, she just writes down her project ideas, and it's great to do that, because even if you don't get to them, or you might start to over-engineer them, by actually writing them down, you don't forget them, and you can kind of noodle on them. And for myself, I don't necessarily do a Trello board. I just have a list of project ideas in my note-taking app. I've seen so many different variations of it. I've known people who email themselves. I know people who have a Notion board. There's so many options. But write down your ideas, because if you ever are hitting some kind of writer's block, but for code, you can have ideas that you can pull from and just start making something. Because when you have that, then you can kind of keep your creative juices flowing and really think about how you want to build things. That being said,
you
go.
Sorry. You could. I know this is your advice, but you can gift those ideas to other people if you have no use for them further.
Exactly.
That's a great point.
Exactly. And they don't have to be very good ideas either. Sometimes it's just a fun idea to see, like, can I do this? Cool. And you roll with it. That being said, Zach, Salma, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Salma, where can people find you on the internet? Do you have any plugs for us?
Well, the biggest thing that I'd like to plug it is my live streaming, because I'm building What the Framework, and if people are interested in it, then come on down and see what I'm doing. It's twitch.tv/whitep4nth3r, and I guess the link will be somewhere around here. You can find me as White Panther everywhere on the internet, Twitter, blah, 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 blah. So come on down, say hi. I like to get messages from people when you say nice things and you want help.
And once again, because making podcasts is expensive, this show is brought to you by Launch Darkly. Launch Darkly toggles peaks of 20 trillion feature flags each day, and that number continues to grow, and you should use them. You can head over to launchdarkly.com and learn about how. Thank you for making this show possible, Launch Darkly. I've been Cassidy Williams. You can find me at Cassidoo, Cassidoo, on most things, and I'm CTO over at Contenda.
And I'm Zach, and I'm a dev rel at Arrive, and you can find me on Twitter at Zach Plata.
Thank you for tuning into the Dev Morning Show at night. Make sure you head over to our YouTube channel where you can like and subscribe. You can also listen to the audio version of this wherever you get your podcasts.